Be a couple of seconds connecting. Okay. So we're live. Hello. Thank you for everyone for joining us. We're going to be discussing DJ collectives and organisations pushing for change. I've got some brilliant speakers with me today. Holly, Tia, Jackie and Silvia. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're all doing okay. And we'll be raising money today for BLMUK, Women in Music, Help Musicians and Mind. You can head to the description in the link below this video to donate if you can. We've had a few donations in today already. I haven't checked the fund, but last time I looked, we were over £100. So it's pretty good, looking good. And hopefully can raise a lot more as the day goes on. But yeah, let's dive into it. It'll be great if you could just tell me who you are and what you're involved in, so the listeners get an idea of what's in store for this panel. Holly, if you want to go first.
Hi, I'm Holly. I'm based in Birmingham, and since graduating uni or during uni, I've worked in music journalism, festivals and events, and I was working at Cafe Artem for 2 years on their events and sort of promotion and marketing. And now I run 2 community projects, one being Selector Hood, which is creating safe spaces and trying to get more women into DJing, and also BLMUK, which is an online publication platform, also broadening perspectives in Birmingham.
Brilliant, amazing. And how about yourself, Tia?
Hi, so I'm Tia. I'm based in Copenhagen, Denmark, and I'm the founder and director of Future Female Sounds. We're a global organization on a very ambitious mission to make DJ culture accessible to women globally. And prior to FFS, which I founded in 2017, I've been in the music industry for about 15 years. I'm also a DJ myself, and I've also been working on managing DJs and artists for lots of years. I also have quite a long history in the NGO sector, so I've worked a lot with music and social change and the intersection between the two. And then I also work as a freelance consultant for Discogs.
Cool, amazing. How about yourself, Silvia?
Hi everybody, my name's Silvia Montello. I'm based in London. I have been in the music industry in various guises for about 30 years now. More recently, I've become involved with the Association for Electronic Music, as I've been a DJ, amateur DJ for a while myself, worked for a number of record labels, and actually this year we are launching a new record label and label services and distribution called Remarkable, and our mission is to represent the underrepresented within electronic music. So we are looking specifically for supporting developing artists and newcomers who are female or female identifying, people from the LGBT community, and people of colour, so people from BME backgrounds. So.
Brilliant, amazing. And how about you, Jackie?
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Palmer. DJ name's Jacki-e. I'm a DJ, I make my own tracks, and I'm a radio presenter as well. I do 2 weekly radio shows, A Darker Wave, which is 2 hours of new techno. Well, actually, it's 2 hours of any techno that we choose to play, but most of it's new. And I also do Draw the Line radio show, which features music made by women, or music made by women together with men. It's not like an anti-men crusade or anything, but it's to help feature women's music above men's, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And to show that there's plenty of music out there, fantastic music that women make that we all, me included, tend to ignore. So yeah, those are the 2 radio shows, and I work on making my own tracks as well, and I've got some releases coming up later this year.
Brilliant, thank you very much. A lot of experience on this panel in a lot of different areas of the industry as well. So thank you so much for coming on. I think I have to dive into this because there's a lot of questions I want to ask you. But if we start with Holly, you mentioned about Selector Hood, it's giving women, non-binary people, trans people, a safe place to learn without scrutiny, and without judgment. How important is it for people to have a space to learn like that? And how have people involved in Selector Hood developed as artists themselves?
I think just like the importance of it has been shown like through the uptake. Started in 2019, and there's about 20 girls, non-binary people, active members, and then we've got a much larger group of people involved in the community as well. And I just think I didn't know that those people were out there until we created the space for them to sort of congregate. And a lot of people I've spoken to all feel very similarly about the sort of pressure and this kind of feeling of not fitting in with the male dominated spaces. So by creating these spaces where it is all femme people, we are able to talk about things that maybe we wouldn't usually, or by removing this sort of male ego, we're able to really feel comfortable and have a great space to learn and support and empower each other and ask questions. So yeah, I think, and also what we found is people have joined Selector Hood for a number of different reasons. Like some it's to learn how to DJ, some it's to find a group of like-minded women, some it's because they're interested in putting on events with more female DJs. So yeah, some people can already DJ and it's just about finding that confidence or seeing some more people doing it and making friends. And there's lots of different ways to connect within Selector Hood, and I think that's what has really shown us that it probably wouldn't have happened if we hadn't been able to meet up on a regular basis and get the name out there and sort of do it together.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You've created a real community for people, and I think it, like you say, it really shows in the intake of it, and how it's getting more and more known everywhere as well. So it's brilliant. Well done. It's so cool.
Thank you.
It's great that you can talk to me about it. I know we've spoken about it before, so I feel lucky to hear about it twice. Here, you kind of taken this on a global mission on that sort of values. What has been the response to your DJ academies in Denmark and outside of Denmark? Have they kind of differed? Has it kind of been a similar program of creating these types of communities?
Yeah, so I obviously it's two very different contexts working with. So we run 2 DJ schools here in Denmark, and as I said, we started in 2017. We started doing the workshops in 2018, and since then we've educated around 350 new DJs. What we do is that we also have a talent incubation program. So they go through the DJ workshops, and then once the DJ babies, as we call them, graduate, we facilitate a platform for them to actually get their first booking. Because one thing is to learn the technical skills and understand what a DJ does and how a DJ thinks and how to build a set and all these different things. And then the next step is to kind of elevate from that and actually go out and get your first booking. And that's when, it can become tricky, especially when you're, a woman or a trans or a non-binary person who is, just coming out for the first time. Lack of spaces, lack of access to safe spaces where they're able to perform for the first time. So because we're also a booking agency with a roster of actually makes a combination between emerging DJs and very established DJs, we're able to kind of put them onto a talent incubation program and then get them their first booking. So, so we work a lot with that here in the context of, let's say, Europe. And then our global programs are designed in a little bit of a different way because we're dealing with completely different obstacles. The challenges that a lot of women have there is that there isn't even a space for this, right? So just general, like basic equipment. So when we opened up our DJ Academy in Tunisia last year, we brought all the equipment ourselves with us on the plane, and because there isn't access to equipment. And obviously then there's a lot of other, social and cultural barriers for girls and women in general in countries that we're focused on. So the response from the two have been overwhelming, I would say. We have hundreds and hundreds of people on waiting lists for our workshops, for our global programs, and for our digital activities as well. So clearly the need is there, the need is there. And, we're super happy to be able to facilitate this together with, all the other sister organizations and people doing the work. Yeah.
It's brilliant. Absolutely amazing. It must be quite rewarding to see that hunger's there when you put that message out there that you're trying to progress people's careers. Yeah. You're kind of like injecting them into the industry, which is brilliant.
We are, but gently injecting them.
Gently injecting people.
Yeah.
Incubating. Yeah, that was a good
Exactly.
word, incubating. Silvia, I think like Tia, you've worked with a lot of big organisations. How have you found them to be taking on board messages of equality and diversification? Do you think it's kind of been a uniform growth, or do you think some are better than others? What have you sort of found?
I think some are definitely better than others, and I think over the years things have definitely improved. The sort of casual sexism that you used to find when I first started sort of post-university in the early 90s, the office would be full of kind of casual sexism and, this sort of subtle undermining of women from people that actually probably didn't even realise the effect that they were having. And it was quite normalised. So even as a young woman within the industry, you just had to brush it off. You just thought, well, this is just how it is. And things have certainly improved, I'd say, in the last 5 years in particular. A lot of organisations have now really woken up to the fact that there needs to be more equality and more diversity within the workforce. And this is, in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of gender identification, sexuality. So across the piece, you're now finding that there are organisations that have set up diversity and inclusion groups, for example, and whilst perhaps some of them take it more seriously than others, there can be a little bit of a tick box exercise within that, I believe. But there are certainly some that actually really making this now a feature of how they're looking to not only support their own diversity within the workplace, but also the diversity of their rosters, which is really important. So yeah, there is a lot of positive change that's happening now. It's better late than never, and there's still an awful lot of work to be done. I think the recent sort of Black Lives Matter campaign has really shone a light, for example, on white privilege and on people really not understanding the differences in people's backgrounds and the difference in their own experience, and how to make sure that they're creating a safe space for everybody to thrive within an organisation. But again, that is improving, and we need to all continue to work on making sure that that gets better going forward as well.
Yeah, I think that's important, and it's good to hear that there are steps being taken in these major places, because maybe like someone like myself, I'm more in touch with people who are doing grassroots and independent organizations where they're very vocal about it's almost an outset mission is to promote growth and equality. So it's good to hear there are changes from within these majors as well. Jackie, you're kind of taking this on board from a musical step of pushing artists and music on your radio show. And like yourself, you said you find it hard as well. And so do I, like probably more because I'm not good at remembering names and I don't really know who any of these artists are that I'm looking at. But like I would like to make more representational sets. How are you doing this? How are you finding different artists that you want to play in your sets?
You know what? Since I started looking for music made specifically by women to put in the show, I now find women making music everywhere. At first, it was quite hard. And the reason it's quite hard is because as a society, we tend to present what men do first, what white men do first. Men of colour, women of colour, females in general, and other minorities, the list goes on, are not elevated to the same extent as white men have been. Now, this is not to say it's anti-anything. It's not anti-anything. It's to support those who are less privileged and who have less of the spotlight shone on them. And as an example, if you go onto Beatport or TrackSource or any of the online digital platforms where you buy music, have a look at who they feature. And I'll let you guess who they feature, what the colour of the skin is, and what the sex is. It is, as for the most part, white men. For women, it's the ones who are well known. You've got Deborah DeLuca, Charlotte DeWitt, Amelie Lance, and a few others. For black men, for black women, very few and far between. I started the show because a friend, Maya Stone, who owns Deep Down Dirty record label, gave me the idea of doing a show to feature music made by women. And as I've gone on with it, I've realised that all minorities are underrepresented on shows. And what I find most disturbing is that if I put a set together myself, whether it be to play in a club, to play on my other radio show, A Darker Wave, it tends to come up as mostly men. And I constantly ask myself, why is that? When I sit down to put a set together for Draw the Line, I deliberately put music together, music in a crate that's all music made by women, or women and men together. And then I pick from that a set that I put out on the radio show.
Yeah.
But if I just want to play a set, and I think this is where it goes wrong, this is where it's so institutional. If I want to play a set, I don't put music by women in. I don't put music by people of colour in. Why? Why is it so institutional and so inset in me and in all of us to do that? Now, I don't have an answer to that question. The only answer I have is that if we want to address this balance, we have to do what we can to elevate music made by minorities to the top of the pile. So we should look at websites like Black Bandcamp, or not websites, but links like Black Bandcamp, where music made by people of colour is all in one place, and you can have a listen to it, put it in your sets, whatever. And make sure that that great music is out there. It is music made by women. I know that's what the discussion is, but I feel very strongly that if we just focus on women, we're missing out on a whole bunch of the population who also make great music and who also deserve to be represented wherever people play music. So I'm actually trying to incorporate that as well, in as much as I can, so that people of minority get their music played in my sets. Now, I have to do a lot of digging to do this. If you dig very deeply, it's there. But it's hidden from sight, but it is there. Go onto Beatport, have a dig around, you find it. Have a look at the top 10s that the top female DJs play. You find other music by women. What are other people playing in their sets? What's on Bandcamp? It's a great place to look for music. What's on SoundCloud? I find a lot of women who make music from the guest DJs I have on Draw the Line, who of course are female DJs, and I have a look at what they play and find music there. So there's a whole load of places to find it. And also when things get back to normal and you can go to gigs and clubs again, meeting people there. I've met a lot of DJs, women DJs, people of minority, people of colour who DJ at gigs, in clubs, not necessarily playing. They've just gone along like I have to enjoy the music sometimes, and I've met them there and asked them to come on the show, and it's a great way of meeting people who make new music, who make music but are not represented elsewhere.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant, and you've just landed so much advice to anyone watching this and to myself. I was just going to mention Bandcamp actually. Since I've started using it, I find it so non-preferential to anyone, because it's just, I'm just going through releases. Like, I don't know who's made it. The art, it's all usually just really cool artwork anyway, so you don't know anything about it. And then when I go to tag people, you know, tracks I played, I was like, oh, who's it? I've never heard this person before. And it's such a diverse range of people. That's definitely helped me a lot. And especially like you say, where that a lot of the Black Lives Matter campaigns, and they're putting black artists on Bandcamp as well.
Could I just say one thing as a bit of a rider, because it's a bit of a hobby horse of mine, is that I hate people who do DJ sets and don't put the track list up. Everything I do, there's a track list goes with it onto SoundCloud, Mixcloud, hear this. So many people don't do it. If you don't put a track list up, how on earth are people going to know what you're playing? What's the big deal? For God's sake, gone are the days when you used to get that vinyl that nobody else got, that white label that nobody else got, and only you could play it in the set. I understood it then, back in the 90s. Yeah, I got it, understand it. I don't get it now. You can find them, you can Shazam it, for God's sake. So if you're a DJ and you're doing DJ mixes, for God's sake, please put a track list up and give them credit to the artists whose music you play.
Yeah, that's a big point. It's going to come up in a panel later, that is, as well. It's about getting credit to people, especially if you're trying to push certain artists as well. Like, it needs to get out there. The track was probably free or 99p anyway, so you know you're not spending £20 on a vinyl. So let people know what it is. But yeah, I mean, this next question kind of can go to anyone, but I think I'll pose it to Holly first, just because you're involved very grassroots and in a scene I'm involved in too. Do you think a scene in Birmingham can make these changes that we've kind of discussing without change happening on a much wider, much bigger level?
Yeah, obviously, like, there's room to change and room to improve everywhere. I think that, like, when we start perceiving women in a better light around the world, obviously that's gonna, I think, create a bigger impact. But at the grassroots level, I think the main thing that we need to be doing is men and women, boys and girls, need to be speaking with each other about experiences. Like, from speaking to my female friends, like, there's like a collective awakening of these things that we've experienced. And it so happens that music and clubs and the music industry is quite a stark, it's quite obvious to see the sexism and how women are represented and treated differently. So I think if we can, women have kind of got to this place where we're not going to stand for this anymore. There is a big problem. It is global, and to change it at the sort of scene grassroots level, it's really just the time, I think, for guys to hear us and to speak between themselves, and to not be afraid to bring up conversations with women, because, like, I'm speaking for people here, but for myself, kind of, prepared to share and to speak openly about things, because we want to make a change. And there's no way we're going to change, like, everything just as women. We need to involve the other half of the population as well. So yeah, like, obviously I started Selector Hood, and we're doing the work to try and empower women and show them that you shouldn't be treated like this, or there's opportunities out there, or you are capable of doing this. But we can't do it, like I said, on our own. Like, we need the male promoters to not only book us, but to, like, actually support, share what we're doing. Like, we're outnumbered in the Birmingham scene as promoters. Like, there's not very many female promoters. So, like, you know, there has to be, like, we can't do it alone anymore. So I think if we speak to each other and sort of get together and say, how are we going to make this better for everyone involved? There needs to be some hard conversations, and also about toxic masculinity, just this male confidence, and that seems to be so bright and, like, so strong when it comes to DJing. So yeah, those are some of my ideas.
Yeah, no,
I don't know if anyone else has.
yeah.
I wanted to follow up on what you were saying, actually, and I think it's a really good point that the conversation has to include men and women in order for us to push things forward. And that sometimes, you know, that there is the toxic masculinity that Holly mentioned. There is also, though, just a lack of understanding and a lack of awareness sometimes within men about the challenges that women have operating in an area that is seen as predominantly white male. So, you know, to give examples about DJing, when I started DJing, we had a female DJ collective, which back then was reasonably rare. And we were treated differently. We were treated as if we didn't know how to use the decks. We would, you know, men would come up while we were DJing and literally start like tweaking the pots and sort of just interfering with what we were doing in that way that kind of made you feel like you were inferior. And sometimes they realized they were doing it, but sometimes they were just completely unaware. But it all kind of contributed to this view that men knew what they were doing and women didn't, and that somehow we were sort of lucky to be there. And in the worst examples, it's almost, well, you're only here because you're a girl and you're wearing a skirt. And, you know, there are so many things kind of bound up in people's expectations. And a lot of that is still underlying with certain men and in certain areas. I think it's getting better. And certainly as sort of younger men are coming through, I'm hoping that some of those prejudices are just not so ingrained. But it is definitely a conversation that we need to be having with young people as well, so that boys and girls coming through school, coming through college, whatever, understand that they can both equally operate in this space if they've got the talent to do it, if they've got the will to do it. It isn't that it's too technical for women, or that it's the preserve of men to be able to DJ or produce or songwrite. So it's important that we get in at that grassroots level and educate people, I think.
Yeah, it seems kind of a theme amongst you all that maybe things are getting better and can get better, but the conversation just needs to continue like constantly. Something can always be better, and it's keeping that discussion going. It's not, okay, we did that, everything's sorted now. That's just not how the world works and how people work. Seems to be sort of a common theme. Tia, how like important has it been for you to take this sort of action with Future Female Sounds in the industry?
Well, I mean, yeah, extremely important. I agree with all of you, what you're talking about. And I mean, it's the same for me. 15 years ago when I started DJing, there was no community really. And it was a very competitive place to be. I mean, you almost have to be twice as good to get half the recognition. I think, things are definitely moving in the right direction. I agree with that. And I also, for us, the way we work, the future is collaborative. That's how we're working around. And this has to be a collective and a collaborative effort if we want things to change. I mean, structural change won't happen by itself. Labels, like top CEOs of labels won't wake up one day and be like, oh yeah, maybe we should, invest in a diversity plan. It has to happen on many different levels, I think. I think social change and community action fuels that, coming from the grassroots and up. I think at some point, we're going to be, at least in this part of the world, because we're kind of discussing this from a European or a Western perspective, is that I think that the industry will also at some point realize that, the community, because the community is becoming younger and younger as well. And the younger generation, they don't see, a gender equality lineup as an issue. They see it as an asset. So I really do have a lot of hope for the younger generation. I do think that they're going to help to push for this change. But the structural change has to happen through various levels. I mean, it's the same with us. We work with very commercial partners. We work with, the underground scene. We work with the commercial scene. So I think really just working collectively and through all the different layers in the industry is what will eventually create some real kind of structural change.
Yeah, amazing. Just want to say, if anyone watching, if you've got any questions, just drop it into the chat and we'll try and get to those as well. I forgot to say that earlier. Jacki, as someone who is a member of CISU and a member of one of these organisations, how do you feel it has supported you, and how's your experience been working with one of these collectives?
I think collectives are very important. I've had a lot of help and support from CISU, based in London, but they do DJ training all over the country. And in fact, I got to join them because I went to one of their DJ training courses, which was the first time I'd tried to beat match final.
Nice.
Yeah, horrendous was my first attempt. But, you know, it's what I was going to say is, in answer to this question, is that if you're in a collective, what they do is they stretch you. They make you go to things, to training events or whatever they're running, and then they put things in front of you and you think, oh my God, I'll never do that, and you do it. So they stretch you and take you to places you would not otherwise go. And in that way, they give you valuable support in your learning and your abilities. I got my first, or one of my early gigs was through CISU, because they obviously would put DJs on who were members of the collective. And I also played my first reggae set at a CISU event, because I love reggae, but I could never ever find anywhere that would let me play it. CISU would, and it was fantastic, and I so enjoyed it. And it's things like that that would not have happened without it. It's a great community. You know, collectives are great communities. Everybody gets on so well, and everybody is so supportive of what everybody does. It's a resource as well. If you need something, you can go onto the community on Facebook or onto the website and ask the question, and somebody somewhere will have the answer or help you find the answer. And you know, I think collectives also have an enormous responsibility to behave in a way that is fitting of their aims and objectives. CISU always do. CISU are absolutely wonderful in that regard, and I have nothing but the highest praise for them in the way that they've helped me.
Brilliant. Yeah, I had a really good conversation with, see now I'm terrible with names. I think it was Mel.
Yes, it was Mel.
And she spoke very highly of you, Jacki, and it was a really good conversation with her as well. That's great to hear. In the spirit of this, seems like collaborating is the way forward. Silvia, is with your new adventure Remarkable, is it going to be, is this how you're going to find artists? You're going to work with collectives and organizations like we have on the panel today?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we totally believe in collaboration, and I think, you know, we're still at really early stages with the label at the moment. So absolutely reaching out to organizations like Future Female Sounds, Selector Hood, CISU. We've already reached out to a couple of labels who have been supportive of what we're trying to do. Hospital Records are one example. They've got their Women in Drum and Bass feature that they've set up, and an organisation to really help develop women within DJing and within production and songwriting as well, which is great. PRS Foundation have also suggested that they will support, which is great because they have a number of programs supporting people from LGBTQ and people of colour, as well as supporting up and coming female musicians and artists. Collaboration has got to be the way forward, I think, not just within the sector that we're talking about, but generally within the music industry. I think, you know, the days of everyone kind of being at each other's throats and being in competition with each other is very kind of old school major label, but it doesn't really suit the way that music is developing and the way that the industry is going, and actually the way that society needs to go as well. It has to become much more collaborative, much more inclusive, and there's so much more that you can actually do if you are collaborating and cooperating and working together to build on something, rather than sort of staying in your own little silos and hoping that nobody else tries to do what you do because you want to be the only, you know, the only person in the room doing your special thing. So that's, you know, with Remarkable, we're absolutely looking to work with people. And, you know, if there are developing artists that people come across that need a helping hand in terms of just getting on the ladder of becoming a released recording artist, then yeah, we're totally happy to get any of those sort of leads or any conversations going with them. That's definitely the way forward.
Brilliant. That's amazing to hear. And maybe some of the collectors can work with you here on the panel today. We did have a question come in from Josie saying, "Are you interested to know how many men are listening to this?" And then it was nice because then 3 men did a little hand sign and saying hello that they were listening. So we're reaching some people and engaging the conversation with white men as well. So we've done something today, definitely. I know we touched on this, but how important do you think it is for the bigger industry leaders to kind of take the initiative with this and not be so reactionary? Are they putting, I understand that it's, you know, it's a business. Are they putting themselves on the line here, or do you think it's important that they show the way for the rest of us? Anyone can pick this up.
I definitely think, I don't see, it's just a power thing to me. I don't see, like, men have ruled the industry for however many years, and why not just say, like, we've had our time, like, it's time to bring some women up, just sort of hand it over and say there's no reason why they can't do it better or as good. So that's my opinion. And I think we won't start seeing, like, there's only so far that grassroots can take it before, like, you get to a point and a man's your boss again, and, like, just you become a bit stagnant. So I think, yeah, we do really need to just train women up and tell them, like, we're starting our own businesses, we'll be CEOs of them, and maybe we can become CEOs of other places that have historically been ruled by men.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah, I think there's you know, if you look at some of the reports that have come out recently about the gender gap, sort of gender pay gap, the diversity gaps still within music, there is a lot of work to be done. They, you know, in some respects, if you look at the latest report that Women in Control published last week, in some ways, senior women within the record industry, we've actually gone backwards a little bit in the last few years in terms of the numbers of women in board positions or leadership positions. And there's really no reason for that. The talent is out there and the will is out there, but the people at the top and the decision makers in the organizations need to really have a good, long, hard look at themselves and do more and look at the balance of their teams. And it's not good enough anymore to say, oh, well, all the people that are applying are men. I just don't believe that that's the case. I think that they need to actively try better and actively be seen as being leaders and thought leaders in this space, put their money where their mouth is, and you know, put actions in place as well. There's no good just making promises and saying the right noises and then hoping it'll all go away and just carrying on as before, with most of your CEOs and most of your presidents of labels all still being men, most of the top people in A&R all still being men. There is no need for that anymore. So everybody needs to work together, from, you know, CEOs of majors right the way through the organizations. That's
super interesting, because, you know, I've sort of posed the question as sort of like an industry leader there, but it's not just having someone necessarily at the top. It's, if it's systemic in your organization, things are not necessarily going to change. Super interesting. That's
also, sorry, and I think we need to have a big think about how we treat women and maternity leave, because that is a big reason why they're not in these sort of positions, and finding a way that works for both women and businesses, because I think the way it is at the moment in the UK anyway is not working. I don't know. I think Copenhagen, is it slightly different, or?
Well, we do have much better conditions, but just taking myself as an example, I started Future Female Sounds when I was 4 months pregnant. And obviously as an entrepreneur, I didn't have any real support. So I had to grow the baby while I was growing the baby organization at the same time. So it was a lot of hard work. I totally agree that obviously, globally, the rules should be better for women.
Yeah, that kind of feeds into like a little off topic, but on topic of that people can like work remotely.
Exactly.
And away. Like it's not like if you're away from that office, like you can still work and still be maybe more effective because you're probably working. You're not factoring the commute, etc. Things don't have to be that way.
Yeah, and that's also, I think, one of the things that, you know, this pandemic has shown us, you know, not only for us who work in the creative industries, but, you know, in general, that a lot can be done digitally as well. And I feel what was really interesting to see was that when lockdown happened here in Denmark, we had to very quickly shift our activities from being, you know, in the physical to the digital. But what we found is that something really beautiful came out of that, because people more than ever needed to connect to other people. So one of the things that came out of this pandemic was that we started a global digital group for women and gender minority DJs. So if you're not part of that group, please join. I think we're around 2,000 members are now so globally. So yeah, feel free to, maybe I'll drop the link below or something.
Yeah, we had a question actually. Someone asked, can we compile all the links at the end? So we'll send those out later and make sure they're attached on where people can watch back. I forgot another question I was going to ask. But it's been absolutely brilliant. I've learned so much from this panel already, and you've given everyone a lot to think about and a lot to consider. And I've had some really good debate here. Is there anything? What sort of like one element you'd like to see change in the industry after this sort of hiatus on nightlife and being able to go outdoors in general, I guess?
I'd like to see more respect and more humility. I think the problem in the industry is that there's too many egos, that people don't have any respect anymore. It's all about them. It's all about, look what I do, and I don't care about anybody else. And you're a woman, you're a person of minority, you're a person of colour, you don't matter. That's not the case. It never was the case. People need to respect each other more, empathise more, and have a little bit of humility about themselves and dump the ego in the rubbish bin. And if that happened, a lot of what we've talked about would just evaporate like the morning mist. And it's the lack of that that's hampering the industry and stopping us from moving forward.
Brilliant point. Yeah, that'd just be great. Society all over, really. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. I think we'll have to come to an end here, but thank you so much for sharing with me, involving me in the conversation. I'm very aware I'm a whitish male in the industry, and it's great to be part of this conversation. So
well, thank you, Luke. You're one of the few that's doing the research and educating themselves, and I've said it before, and I think more men can take note from you, definitely, and try and have these conversations with us and not just assume what people are thinking.
Thanks very much, Holly. I know we've had some discussions, and hopefully we're going to have some more in a few weeks as well, which would be cool. But thank you so much. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Tia. Thank you, Jackie. And thank you, Silvia. We'll see you later on, Silvia. Thank you so much. And everyone will be able to watch this back on beatsbringers.com when it's uploaded. And again, if you want to donate, we're supporting women in music, Help Musicians, Mind, and BLMUK, and the link's in the description. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us, and I'll see you at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.